At ease, sailor. Admiral Gunner Strikeforce, retired Admiral of the Second Fleet. Even though I officially retired 5 years ago, I still like the way my uniform fits me. Besides, what can I say? Women love a man in a uniform. Yeah. Ain't that right, sailor? Yeah, fist bump. But behind me is a map of the Battle of Waterloo, June 18th, 1815. Over 50,000 men died that day in one of the bloodiest days of combat in the world's history. Napoleon's defeat that day marked his demise, exiled forever to a tiny remote island in the South Atlantic named St. Helena. Now, as a retired five-star admiral in the U.S. Navy, I served in both Gulf Wars. I consider myself an expert in military strategy, international diplomacy, and the board game of risk. And I know a thing or two about military strategy. The key is to go after Asia first, not Australia. That's a fool's game, son. Well, if I had been there at Waterloo, that battle would have ended very differently, with hardly any casualties. I will explain what I mean on the other side. Admiral Strikeforce again. Early in my military career, I sought promotions. I wanted power, and most of all, a dress uniform that attracted the babes. Yeah, what can I say? That's a photo of me in my younger days. I can't remember her name. What can I say? The chicks all swooned over me back then. But with the wisdom of age, I now realize that what really matters in life are three things: honor, perseverance, integrity, and meat lovers pizza. And not necessarily in that order. Okay, technically, that's four things. Thankfully, throughout my prestigious Pentagon career, I was always surrounded by rear admirals who were way better at math than I was. Where am I going with this? Hell if I know. My ADHD medication hasn't kicked in yet. But I think my point was that the world is falling apart. Ukraine is a bloody mess, not to mention the war in Gaza between Hamas and Israel. And then there's that anger and rage building up in the streets of Venezuela and among the long-suffering New York Jets fans who bought season tickets last year. They chose poorly. People are fearful that our country will get dragged into yet another armed conflict with Panama or Mexico or Canada or Denmark. But fortunately, I have just the plan to de-escalate these hostilities. 2 words. Cupcakes. Okay, I've just been informed by one of my midshipmen that cupcakes is technically speaking 1 word, but who's counting? My point is, nobody can resist cupcakes. Period. The end. When was the last time you saw people fight when cupcakes were being served? Unless it was arguing over dibs on who got the last one. If one of your coworkers brings cupcakes to the office to share, it is undeniably far and away the single best thing that's going to happen to you that day. Unless you happen to win the Pennsylvania $100 million lottery that day, then yeah, arguably that would be slightly better. We both know your in-laws never approved of you marrying their daughter, Monica. But I guarantee, if you bring cupcakes to the next family outing, they may even start calling you by your actual name instead of their latest nickname, Shorty McRatsperm. Imagine if during the Civil War, the Union generals decided to assault the Confederates with cupcakes instead of guns. The boys in gray, overjoyed at receiving creamy, delicious cupcakes, would have no doubt put down their bayonets, embraced their brothers in blue, and the slaves would have been freed by dinner time. There is this slight remote possibility that the unarmed Union troops would have been annihilated in the process, but they would have perished with a smile and cupcake crumbs on their faces. Had Marie Antoinette said, "Let them eat cupcakes," instead of "let them eat cake," well, the peasants may have stormed the bakeries instead of the Bastille. Marie would have saved her neck, and France would still be a monarchy today. And Marie would have no doubt been voted the most popular queen in French history in a Twitter Insta poll. Had X, existed back in 1793. Hashtag Marie Antoinette, hashtag let them eat cupcakes. Imagine if in the Battle of Bunker Hill, the American cannons had fired cupcakes instead of cannonballs. The Revolutionary War would have been over in days, not years, and we'd still be pledging allegiance to the Queen. instead of our current commander-in-chief, the Orange Julius Caesar. I knew we never would have been in the mess we're in right now. Think about how World War II could have ended years sooner if instead of dropping bombs on Germany, our brave airmen dropped thousands of German chocolate cupcakes instead. Maybe using those cute little mini parachutes. In my military assessment, countless lives could have been spared, albeit shortened somewhat due to the serious spike in heart disease from all the cholesterol caused by mass cupcake binging. I have no doubt that the Iraq War could have been averted had we used the carrot and stick approach. Make that a carrot cupcake and stick approach. Saddam Hussein, you have a choice. Free your people now and step down from power, and we'll give you a lifetime supply of carrot cupcakes. Or we will erase that smarmy mustache on every single statue of you. I'm convinced he would have jumped at the carrot cupcakes option, unless, of course, he was more of a Snickerdoodles cupcake fan. But what are the odds of that? As for Desert Storm, had I been in charge of military strategy, I would have gone with Dessert Storm instead. By the way, a lot of people worry that Donald Trump won't leave the Oval Office at the end of his second term in 2028. But have you checked out his diet? Simply present him with a case of 24 vanilla salted caramel cupcakes and a bucket of KFC, flanked by a contingent of 200 Marine Green Berets with assault rifles, and he'd be out the door before he could say, I'm a very stable genius. In conclusion, as a highly respected military strategist and someone who has not lost at the board game Stratego in 20 years, I'm telling you, the key to achieving lasting global peace is through cupcake diplomacy. Yeah, there is one small risk, hardly worth mentioning. And that's if Russian President Putin gets wind of this strategy. That devious dictator just might manipulate Trump into ceding Florida to Russia by giving him a gift basket of assorted cupcakes. If you ask me, that would be a serious tactical error on our part. If I were the president's military advisor, I would counsel him to give up Mississippi instead. That's all, sailor. You're dismissed.